Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you all for being here and checking in on this webinar. We're going to go over the elements of a feasibility summary, the feasibility summary that you would use to apply for any one of our New Venture Challenge tracks, whether it's the Global New Venture Challenge, the New Venture Challenge, the College New Venture Challenge, or our new Alumni New Venture Challenge, or our Social New Venture Challenge. So a feasibility summary, think of a feasibility summary as a mini business plan. The mini business plan is designed to give you a sense and give us a sense of what the business is you're thinking about before you do all of the work of actually writing an official business plan. So it's a shorter version of a business plan where the thinking may not be as well developed or in as much detail, but we're trying to assess whether or not there's a real potential for a business here. So the things that you want to cover in that feasibility summary are all of the basic things that you want to cover in a business plan. You just do it at a less rigorous, less researched level. You'll notice that the major thing that's missing from the feasibility summary are detailed financials. We do not expect that you will have developed detailed financials and financial projections and financial statements for your business at this stage necessarily. So while they can go into the feasibility summary, they're not required. We'll look at economic elements of your business in these various sections, but this is much more of an overview. Okay, so we'll start with the value proposition. This is probably one of the two most critical parts of your feasibility summary. We need to know what exactly it is that you are creating and what the benefits are for your customers. So why does your customer want this solution? Does your customer have a particular need or a problem that you're solving, or are you creating an opportunity for your customer? So not every business goes directly at a customer need. Sometimes it's a customer want, a customer desire. You can think for consumers, you can think of we buy things to satisfy our needs, but we also buy things to satisfy our wants. So for a business-to-business entity, that company is going to buy things either to help its bottom line, improve its productivity, lower its costs, improve its quality, or increase its top line, allow it to sell better, allow it to sell more to its customers, allow it to delight its customers. So what you're trying to define is what exactly does your product or service do for your customer. You need to be specific, but you also need to make sure that you're writing in a way that this audience, which is a general business audience, would understand. So if you look at our example here, the company has developed the saliva sac, a proprietary semi-permeable membrane that enables the collection in saliva of biochemical markers below 12 kilodaltons. The company will focus on finding those applications which meet this criteria and where there is an advantage to collecting a non-invasive sample. First of all, that's very technical. Like a semi-permeable membrane, biomarkers in kilodaltons. Chances are pretty good that not every one of the readers is going to understand that. The second part of this is that it's not describing an actual solution. It's saying that the company is going to find applications. In other words, it's not saying that we have a product yet. It's not saying what we're going to focus on at the beginning. So if you look at example 2, the company's objective is to develop a non-invasive medical diagnostic test. The first application is for using a proprietary saliva collection device to measure glucose levels in diabetes. This is focused on an actual deliverable. So you're saying that the company has a platform that can do multiple things, which is develop non-invasive tests, but you're also saying that the first test you're going to develop is glucose levels in diabetes. So we know exactly what you're aiming at. The technology, the semi-permeable membrane, the biomarkers at kilodaltons, and all of that technical stuff can come in a little bit later in the description, but at a high level, we need to know what the product is doing. So a lot of times, technology companies, medical companies, dual-sided network companies, they want to talk about the platform and all of its various potential applications. Be careful about that. You want to make sure that you're focused on a product or service or something that you can actually bring to market that will do something with for your customer in the near term. And all of that rich goodness that is the platform can come out later in the business plan or in the feasibility summary. Obviously, you can't really talk about customer segments. You can't really talk about what products do for customers until you talk about who your customers are. So your next section really has to be, who are you selling this to? Who are the different groups of people or organizations that you aim to reach and serve? How do you define the market? What is the potential market size? So for those of you who took Building the New Venture with me, we worked on initial target market as being very narrow. Where will you begin? You do need to define where you're going to begin, but for the kind of business plan that you're writing in the GNVC or in the ANVC, you need to also think about the fact that this document is going to help you raise money. And so investors are interested in where you start, but also where you can go from there. So who are your customers? You're going to start here, but ultimately the entire market that you might be able to gradually, as a larger company, address would be this size. So if you look at this sort of illustration, market size is about what industry do you play in, and then where do you play. And so this is a company that's offering a new type of painting surface. Surfaces are 21% of the art supply industry. They're looking at the 75%, or they're looking at, sorry, the 25% of that market that is price insensitive professional artists. It's a $147 million segment of that market. Customer profile, this is the where you begin, right? So we do here's the entire market, here's where we're going to begin. As much detail as you can about what does the customer look like. So in the case of a consumer, what are the demographics? Where do they live? What is their income level? Age? What drives them? In a B2B, what's the nature of the company? What industry is it in? What size is it? Who specifically at that company is your buyer? The more you can specify who your customer is and what their problem is, the more you know your customer, the more credible you are that you can bring a solution to that customer that they will value. Obviously, you have to think about who else is out there in the marketplace. One of the big mistakes that entrepreneurs make is they say, oh, well, there's no competition because there's nobody doing exactly what we're doing with the exact features or combination of features. But every business has some form of competition, whether it's direct competition, indirect competition, substitutes. Your customers are solving their problem today somehow. So who are the players in the market? Who might your competition be in the future? And then what specifically are your competitive advantages relative to the competition? So that's the positioning. You can also acknowledge that you may have some disadvantages. So if there's a very large competitor out there, their economies of scale are going to be a disadvantage for you, but you may do something to overcome that disadvantage by, say, addressing a market that they're not addressing, a niche target base that they're ignoring, or creating something that offers the customers that would normally go with them something different that they can't get from that large competitor. Positioning is relative to cost, quality, features, functionality, differentiation, all of those good things. Competition is going to lead you right into differentiation. So what are the elements of your business that make it unique or different? I want to talk about this for a minute because entrepreneurs often think that differentiation is all about the product, that your product has to be unique, patented, proprietary, completely different. But in Larry Feely's book, 10 Types of Innovation, you'll see that only 2 of his 10 types of innovation actually deal with the product itself. The rest of them deal with the business model. So either how you take it to market, who the market is, your communication strategy, your ability to generate revenue, how you collect money or generate revenue, or operational, how you create the product, what you do from a process perspective, your inputs, your skill sets. So your differentiation, the things that allow you to compete, can come from other areas in your business than just the product itself. So in the product category of differentiation, how proprietary is it? Can you take patents on it? Can you protect it with trade secrets? But in the business model area of differentiation, are there exclusive partnerships that you have? Are there high switching costs once a customer is working with you because of the data? Are there network effects? Does your product become more and more sticky and more compelling as more and more people join your platform or as you collect more and more data? So really think beyond just the product when you think about differentiation. We've defined who and what we're offering and why we think we have a chance to compete in the market. Now we need to talk about how we acquire customers. We're going from the what we want to deliver into the how we're going to do it. And this is where we're going to start to work in elements of the economics of your business. Okay? So when you think about customer engagement, when you think about the sales process, you have to think about the expenses that go along with that. That's going to help get into the economics of the business. So customer engagement. How do you communicate and get your solution to your customers? What are your marketing tactics? What is your sales channel? What is your engagement process or customer service process? So how does your customer learn about the product? Do not talk in generalities here. Every company is going to use social media marketing. Don't tell me you're going to use social media marketing. Tell me, here are the top 5 influencers in our field that we're going to get to write about us. Tell me, here are the long-tailed keywords that we're going to use on Google to capture people's searches at the moment of their purchase. Tell us these are the 3 Facebook groups that we're going to advertise specifically to. Be as detailed and concrete as you can. If at any point in your feasibility summary you're saying something that basically any company could say, then it isn't helping you make your case about your company. So the more specificity and the more detail that you can deliver, the more the reader can see exactly how you plan to execute. And it makes it credible that you know what you will be doing. You know what your execution path will be. So this is marketing, it's distribution, it's your sales process, particularly in the B2B space. Who is the buyer? Who are the stakeholders? How do you get in the door? How do you retain your customers? Is this a one-off purchase? Is it a subscription style purchase? Is it a renewal? Those kinds of things when you think about engaging your customer. The revenue model. What will your customer pay you? So one of the things that you have to think about with a lot of different business models is that your customer, the user of your product, might be different from your customer, the payer for your product. There also might be a different decision maker. So there can be multiple players in the mix. Where is your revenue going to come from? If you are creating, say, a dual-sided network where you have buyers on one side and sellers on the other, are your buyers paying you a subscription to be part of the network? Are your sellers paying you a commission? You have to talk about both of those as customers or users, but where is the revenue actually coming from? If you're selling B2B into a large institution, the users might be the individuals in the sales force. The buyer might be the vice president of sales or the head of sales, and they might have to get the money approved from the CFO, or they might have to get the technology approved by the chief technology officer or the CIO. So you want to think about all of the players in the value proposition for your customer. So who are the stakeholders? How do they interact? Define your revenue model. Okay, now we can start to talk about who is the payer, how much does it cost to acquire everybody in this value proposition? How much does it take to acquire paid customers? How much does it take to acquire users? If it's a dual-sided network, you have to acquire both. How do you develop your margins? What are the economics of your revenue model? Now, those of you who have taken my class know I like to make the joke I'm the least mathematical of all of your professors, but I do want to remind you that the price that you charge has to be greater than or equal to all of your costs and less than or equal to your customer's perceived value. So a couple of things I want to say about this silly equation that I have here. One, entrepreneurs are notorious at underestimating costs. Two, entrepreneurs very often think as part of their differentiation, as part of their go-to-market, since they're so new, they better price low as a way to lower the barriers to try them. And three, it's really hard to figure out what your customer's perceived value is before you have customers. All of this tends to make entrepreneurs underprice their products. Their estimation that it's going to cost them less than it's going to cost them, their thoughts that they need price not to be an obstacle for their customers, and the fact that it's really hard to have a good return on investment model for your customers in the early days, so we'll just set our price low. This is a critical mistake that entrepreneurs make. Not only is it difficult to build a business if the pricing is too low, it's much easier to lower pricing in the market than it is to raise pricing in the market, and price is a signal. When you price low, you are saying something about the value that you're creating. So your price has to reflect the value that you believe you're creating. Your job is to figure out why your customer wants this product or this service. That's your customer discovery. That's your customer research. The more you can find out about why they want your product, the more you can estimate how they will perceive the value to arrive at the right price. Use all kinds of research, competitive research, substitutes, look at business analogues that have brought similar products into the market. Where do they end up priced? And try as much as you can to set a price that's going to allow you to communicate how you perceive your value, how you expect your customers to perceive the value, what you are actually creating for them, the benefits you're delivering for them. This has been statistically proven to be a key indicator or a key element of entrepreneurial success. So competing on price is a very, very bad idea for entrepreneurs and startups. What you want to compete on is your value proposition, your go-to-market, your uniqueness, your operations, your quality, your connections. You want to compete on something other than price. Okay, enough on that. The reader wants to know that you understand how you're going to actually bring your product to market. So how are you going to actually create it? What are the skill sets involved? What are the processes involved? Do you need partners? Do you need IP? What will it take to actually bring this to market? So what are the most important parts of the operations? If you have a product, what's the production process? Are you making it yourself? Are you outsourcing it? If you are more of an IP type of company, is it about data? Is it about coding and development, technology development? If you're a platform, is it about how you develop the network? How do you do those things? How do you get the product actually done? Do you have specific assets you need, facilities, certain types of experts, scientists, developers, people who are experts in machine learning or AI, the team? What are the financial resources you need? What are the costs that are required to create your product, to do your sales, to maintain your relationships? So even though we're not asking you for fully fleshed out financials, between the cost to acquire your customers that we've talked about and the cost to actually develop and deliver your solution, we are getting to the economics of your business. So that's what you want to talk about in the operations section, is how you do what you do and what will it cost you. I said that the value proposition was the most important, or was one of the two most important things that will go into your feasibility summary and convince an investor that they're interested in knowing more. Your team is the second. So there's a debate in the industry, which is more important, the opportunity or the team? Steve Kaplan used to think it was the opportunity, but all of his research has now shown that it's the team. The team is the most important thing that investors consider. They consider the opportunity second. Investors figure that a really great team, even if they choose the wrong product to start with, are going to find their way to the best value proposition and get it to the market. The cliche is, I would rather invest in an A team with a B idea than a B team with an A idea. All of this means that it is really important that you actually talk about and position your team in your feasibility summary. And you will be asked to attach your resume, but investors don't dig through resumes to try to figure out what in your background, excuse me, to figure out what in your background is relevant to this specific business. It's your job in the text of the feasibility summary to write a brief bio that specifically connects your experience, your networks, your knowledge to this company. And then let your resume add credibility builders based on all of the things you've done in your career. So don't talk about your team in the aggregate. Our team has 30 years plus experience of, and don't ask your investor to go through your resume to figure out how your experience relates to this business. Take some time to write a bio that is specific to this company and connects yourself to this company. So look at example one. Frank Smith, our CTO, has extensive experience in managing and building data warehouses. He previously served as vice president in charge of Thomson Financial's database management systems and worked as a consulting manager with IBM building data warehouses. It's not his entire resume. It's two elements of his career that are directly related to data and data architectures. And it names the companies because the companies themselves are credibility builders. You may not have as clearly connected experience as Frank does for your role. If you've been in consulting for most of your career, but you're building a business that's in the consumer space, or you're building a business that's in the technology arena, the fact that you were a consultant with Bain or McKinsey may not directly translate to your role as the head of marketing for your startup. It's your job to pick those elements of your career, those elements of your experience as a consultant, and tell me what you gained there that's relevant to marketing for this business. So, as a consultant at McKinsey, several of my projects were with consumer products companies, giving me some insights into how they market to consumers that I will use in this company in my role as the head of marketing. So again, our resumes may not be a perfect fit for our startups, so it's our job to explain to the investor or the reader why we are the right people to create this company. You will not be a perfect management team. You will have critical gaps. That is fine. What you want to do is acknowledge those gaps and then talk about how you fill them. So if your company has a great technologist and a great finance person, but no direct industry experience in the industry that you want to apply your technology to, how do you fill that gap? Well, in the short term, you might fill it with great industry advisors. And those industry advisors are working with you, which gives you credibility that you're actually defining a solution, a technology solution that would be useful for that industry. And those advisors will help you to get into that industry. If there's a role that's missing, a critical role, your business is a consumer business and none of you have ever done consumer marketing, is that something that you would hire? Would you hire for it in your first round of funding, or would you hire for it after you've proven out your minimum viable concept and gotten some customer feedback? It is perfectly legitimate to say, particularly to an investor, that one of the things we want to do with the money we're asking you for is add to our team. So if you look at example 2, we are currently looking for a director of sales. We have identified several individuals in data information companies that sell to Fortune 500 companies, consulting firms and investment firms, that we would be interested in going after once we have secured our financing. So it's perfectly legitimate to have gaps in your team. It's a good idea to address them. If there are key partners that you will need to get your value proposition out there, sourcing partners, manufacturing partners, data partners, and you're already in conversations with specific partners, those are credibility builders. So identify who the key partners will need to be, and if you're already in talks with them, sort of talk about the fact that you're already in talks with them, because that's a key credibility builder that you're actually building your business. So everything we've talked about is kind of in the abstract. This is what we're doing, this is who we are, but where are we today? So this is a really important section to tell the reader, okay, this is their vision of their business, this is who they think they're going to serve, this is the product they're developing. Where are they right at this moment with the business? Have they tested their assumptions with customer interviews? Have they filed for any intellectual property? Can they show a prototype? Have they gone all the way to a minimum viable version of their product that they've put into the hands of some potential users and gotten some feedback? Have they signed up any customers? Do they have any B2B customers who are saying to them, yes, we will beta your solution with you. We will let you use our data to test your solution. Do they have any development customers, is what we would call them? Have they gotten any partnerships? This is, what have you done so far? Who have you engaged? Where are you in the process? The New Venture Challenge happens when the New Venture Challenge happens. It doesn't necessarily happen when your business is ready to be out raising money. So all of the companies will be at very different stages. The companies, some will be purely in the idea stage, just vetting their ideas, testing their assumptions, talking to customers, looking for business analogs, researching competition. Some will be very much in that idea stage. Some will be a little further along. Some may even have early customers. They may have a few paying customers. It's really important that you tell us where you are, how much of what you've written about in the feasibility summary is already real, that you've already tested it, that you're already engaging with these people, right, and how much of it is yet to be proven. So this is an important element of your application. If there are critical business risks that are specific to your business, not sort of the general business risks of, you know, our customers may or may not need this as much as we think, or there may be technology development, it may be harder to develop our product than we think, not just the sort of the regular business risks, but if there are things that are very specific to your business, it's a good idea to raise those in the feasibility summary, in the business plan, to say our business is highly dependent on a supply of a particular input. If the market for that input would change dramatically, that could change our value proposition quite a bit. So I'll give you an example of the company that went through several years ago, the New Venture Challenge, Simple Mills. She is creating gluten-free baked goods. So she started with baking mixes, and the reason that her gluten-free baked goods are so delicious and so such good products is that she found that almond flour worked incredibly well in baking to give the product a texture and a taste and a moisture that was very, very similar to using a wheat product or a grain product. Almond flour is a unique element of her product that is a relatively small market. There's a relatively small, number of almond growers in the world. So if anything were to happen with almond production because of weather, or if a big company were to sort of copy what she was doing and start to try to buy up all the almond flour, that would be a huge business risk for her. So she was able to talk about the relationships she's developed with her almond flour suppliers, locking in her almond contracts, her flour contracts in advance, and as well experimenting with other nut flours that she could substitute with an equally good response if the almond flour market were to go crazy. When you can talk to your investor about something that specific to your business, it gives you a lot of credibility that you've thought through all these issues. Business risks can be dealt with in this section, or they can be dealt with in any one of the other sections where they are relevant. So you can deal with customer acquisition risks in the customer acquisition section. You can deal with operations risks in the operations section. But if there's something really unique and specific to your business around intellectual property or inputs or labor or anything like that, or regulatory issues, it's good to call those out. Researching and validating all of this involves looking at other companies who are trying to do similar things. And when you can show an investor that you're modeling your strategies, your tactics on other successful companies who have done similar things, that gives them a lot of comfort that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, that you have a path that has been trod before that you're going to add your unique touch to, but that you've got examples that back up why you think you can do things the way you think you can do things. So if there are analogs that validate your business model, it's a good thing to include sort of a little research section on those business analogs. Who are they? How successful have they been? If they've made mistakes, what were those mistakes? How are you fixing those mistakes? Have they exited? What were the multiples that they exited at? These are the kinds of things that can get investors really excited about the business model that you're doing, is if they know that something similar, not something exactly the same, but something similar in a similar market with similar costs, similar customers, similar value proposition has been funded and succeeded, and you're following their proven blueprint, that can give them a lot of confidence that you've de-risked some elements of your business. So that's kind of a little research section, and you would add that on with your specific customer research. So if you have data from your customers, you would want to include data from your customers in that kind of an appendix with this business analogs section. All right, so I know I've thrown a ton at you, and it's a lot to think about. Hopefully it will structure a lot of the work you're doing. When it comes right down to it, the things that make investors invest are really market, management, and business model. And the things that keep them from investing are really the team, the business model, and by business model, I'm using the word, they use the word strategy in this study that Steve Kaplan did, but strategy for a startup is really that business model and your plan. Management strategy, and if there's too much competition, if there's too much well-funded competition, that will hold the investor back. So you'll notice that a big market opportunity will make them want to invest, but they don't consider market to be one of the top risks. They figure that a good management team will find the right market, will find their way. A big market is something that excites them, but it doesn't necessarily frighten them. But the management team is critical for both investing and choosing not to invest. So if you want to know how your feasibility summary will really be evaluated, translate strategy as business model. Is there a legitimate, viable, feasible business model here? Is this team committed to doing it, and does this team have some relevant experience to bring to the table, relevant networks, relevant connections, and is there a real opportunity here with the value proposition and the market? Those are really how your feasibility summary will be evaluated. You'll notice that the product itself and the technology itself are pretty low on the list of things that investors care about, because they know that that's a work in progress, and they assume that a good team will find a way to deliver the right product or develop the right technology for the market. So the current state of your product is not as important as your business model and how you're going to execute your business model to bring that product to market as you're working on it. So as you're doing your minimum viable product, can you engage users to give you feedback on it? In your early launch, can you get those early customers, right, so that you can prove that people will actually pay for it? So the product itself is less important than the business model and your value proposition and your go-to-market. All right. Couple of things that entrepreneurs do that are mistakes. There are a bunch of cliches that entrepreneurs will use. We don't have any competition. We're the low-cost provider. We only need a 5% market share to be a really big company. Our numbers are conservative. I'm going to stop on this one for a second. First of all, entrepreneurs are not conservative. Second of all, they should not be conservative. Investors don't want conservative, realistic entrepreneurs. They want optimistic, eager, we can beat all the odds entrepreneurs. What you're doing here is not an operating business plan. It's not a business plan that is a detailed step-by-step guide to the next 12 to 24 months. That's an operating plan. What you're writing here is a marketing business plan. This is, what can we accomplish if money is not the thing holding us back? If we can raise our seed round, if we can raise our Series A, how fast can we go? How big can we get? Investors don't want you to be conservative, so don't be conservative. And certainly don't say that you're being conservative. People like, we are the Uber of X, we are the Facebook of X. Investors don't like that because it means that you have a very specific view of what Uber is, and you expect that the investor or the reader has that same view. Let the investor or the reader figure out, hey, if these guys do this, it's kind of like they're the Uber of healthcare delivery or whatever it is. Don't try to shortcut explaining what you're doing with a cliche. Acronyms are really tough. Don't assume that people come out of your industry. Avoid them as much as you can. We've had lots of fintech companies with regulatory acronyms that go crazy. We've had insurance companies with lots of acronyms. We have medical companies with lots of acronyms. Try to avoid using acronyms, and if there's one that's so critical to your industry or your business that you have to use it, make sure that you explain it the first time, TFT. Investors want to know who's in charge. So right now, maybe your collaborative team of 3 and you haven't really decided who's the CEO, and you're all kind of co-operating, co-running the company. Investors don't like that. They want to know who is going to be the person that they're going to be engaging with as the CEO, as the final decision maker. Even if none of you are really totally qualified to be the CEO, someone should be the interim CEO, and you should say, we're looking to hire a CEO once we've proven out this business who will, professionalize this and take it to market. That problem is more critical for, say, the College New Venture Challenge or the MBA New Venture Challenges, the NVC and the SNVC, because a lot of times they're younger people who don't have the experience, the management experience to really be the CEO. With the Global New Venture Challenge or the Alumni New Venture Challenge, I think that's less of an issue, and you'll have someone who is the CEO. Be really clear and simple and concise. We're middleware for wireless networks, and then you can go on and describe what it does. Not, we develop and deliver an integrated suite of packaged applications for web and wireless deployment. Global enterprises use these applications to become more competitive and profitable by establishing and sustaining high-yield interactions and transactions with customers, suppliers, and employees. That's a lot of words that have some kind of a meaning for you when you write them, but don't really mean anything to a reader. How do they become more competitive? How do they become more profitable? What does your technology do in establishing these high-yield transactions? Be concise and then be specific and explain exactly what you mean. Capture people's attention. The opening paragraph of your feasibility summary, or the first page of your feasibility summary, should tell me what is the opportunity here, what are you bringing to market, who is it for, why is it unique, why are you in the right position to do it, and what's your unique differentiator. That's your business opportunity, and you want to put that up front in sort of a summary paragraph. In reading business plans, venture capitalists will typically read an executive summary, and then they'll use the business plan for reference. They'll jump to your go-to-market section, or they'll jump to your financials, or they'll jump to your team section, and they'll use it sort of as reference. They don't sit and read a whole business plan. So it's really important that you get some critical stuff up front in the feasibility summary, in the executive summary of a business plan. So those are some of the mistakes that people make, some of the do's and don'ts. And that is all I have in terms of, prepared content. I hope it's useful. I know people have to jump off because we've now hit our 1 hour mark, but I'm really happy to hang around for any of you who have questions. You can unmute and ask the question, or you can type it in, either way. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope that I will be reading a lot of great feasibility summaries in a couple of weeks.
Hi, Waverly. This is Anil here.
Hello.
Hey, quick question. Is there a new application format which is already available to
Yes.
fill these in? Okay.
Yes, the new application format is available. It is very, very much just an electronic version of the old application. So yes, you can go to the website and click on the application, and I think that the new one is live already. But it's a series of questions on when you were founded, who's involved, what your key product is, things like that. But yeah, you can go on the website and look at the application.
Okay, great. And one more question I had was on the, I think you calculated, but just want to double check. When we calculate the initial or the market potential, that's not just the initial market size, correct?
Correct. For those of you who took Building the New Venture with me, we focused very much on the initial target market, and we did that because that's about your execution. That's about what you're going to actually do in the next 12 to 24 months. This business plan takes into consideration sort of your total addressable market. So you're going to start here, but you would expect to expand here, and that gives you a potential market size of X. So yes, you'll talk about your initial target market, but you'll also talk about your total market.
Great. Thank you.
Pratap is asking if you can get help in the review of the feasibility study drafts. Yes, you can get all the help you want to from anyone in your network who will read it. From the Polsky Center perspective, you can ask the Polsky Center folks, Chrissy Ritter. Also, I will introduce your TA to you if you would like help in reviewing your feasibility summary. I was unable to contact him in time to get his permission to put him into this presentation, but if you would like an introduction to the TA, he has volunteered to help some folks review their feasibility summaries. Just send me an email.
Good morning, everyone.
All right, folks, thank you for joining me, and I hope this was helpful, and I will read your feasibility summaries with great interest, and I will read past the first page, I promise.
Thank you very much, Waverly.